So both Pinterest and Snapchat reported their earnings now for Q4 2021. So today we have to deep dive into them and actually compare them side by side to look at their revenue growth numbers, their monthly active users, and their average revenue per user. And then in the end of the video, we're gonna compare the valuation of both of them to see how they compare and what is maybe the better deal at these current prices. So let's head straight into it. I've got the both of the quarterly earnings reports open here, but first of all, we need to see what actually happened while once they've both reported, and both of them super positive. I mean, if you haven't seen, it was crazy. Pinterest gone up 11% on the day. Snapchat has gone up almost 59% on the day, so huge increases. If you just saw this one-day chart, you would be thinking, oh my god, this is insane, they're at new all-time highs after this crazy earning report. But yeah, guess what? If you zoom out a little bit more from 6 months, you're actually still down massively. So if you look at the 52-week range, we've got a $90 for Pinterest. So they were trading so richly, so overvalued basically. $90 now almost lost 70% and back to under $30 today. Same for Snapchat, similar, not as bad, but similar. The 52-week range here is $83. So we're less than, looking at $39, we're less than 50%. Or more than 50% off the all-time highs, or the 52-week highs actually. So yeah, still they have really just caught up and recouped some of the losses that they had in the last month or so. So nothing really too dramatic if you look at it from a big picture perspective, and if you've been invested in for a while. So nevertheless, we do have to look into the earnings report to see how do they compare. Are they keep growing? Obviously with those types of growth companies, you want to see the monthly average users going up, you want to see them expanding, you want to see their revenue per user going up, and all these types of things. So if you think about both businesses, what do they have? They're pretty easy to actually be valued at from if you simplify it basically. So you can say, what is my user base? What are my active users? And what do those users make me in terms of every month? And that times that equals the revenue pretty much. I mean, there's not much rocket science to it. This is just what it is. So that's why their earnings report also has these 3 slides as the key slides in the beginning. So let's start off with revenue. So we do see a 20% year-on-year growth in Pinterest, which is impressive. We do see that the growth primarily comes from the international market. So the US market, although growing 11% on year-to-year basis is quite good. The majority of the growth on revenue comes from the international market. Looking at Snapchat, we have a different picture here. So Snapchat has a global, all-in-one, all-total growth of 42% year-on-year. And they've broken it down into 3 different segments: North America, Europe, and rest of world. And all of them are around that 40% level. So we do have a quite consistent, strong, really strong growth, worldwide, not just in one specific geographic segment, such as Pinterest might have it. We do have that growth evenly across the world, which is a good indication that user base is still growing consistently, not just in emerging markets or something like that, but also in the US and Europe. That point definitely goes to Snapchat from that level. Next one is monthly active users. So looking at that from a Pinterest perspective, it is concerning for us, definitely. We have a year-on-year decrease of 6%, so I don't think that ever happened to them, which is quite surprising, I think. And it's also surprising to me that although this happened, the stock actually went up, which might show that it was actually oversold. On a normal basis, if the stock wasn't as sold as much already, a 6% decrease in user growth might have brought the stock to tank from the all-time highs. If this was trading at 90 and they reported a 6% decline in users, it would have definitely tanked, I can tell you that. So we do see a very consistent slowdown actually in activity. I mean, it's not a massive decrease, but Nevertheless, 12% less in the US in terms of monthly active users, although we've just seen that all the other metrics in terms of revenue tick up. So we have an 11% increase in revenue, whilst 12% decrease of monthly users. So it definitely means that there's only one possibility: the revenue per user has to have gone up, which is the case as we see soon. But yeah, nevertheless concerning from that perspective that it seems like to have reached their peak, or they're still adding users. This is monthly active users. So this is after you registered. How active are you on the platform? They do have user growth constantly, because obviously the old profiles, they're not just deleting themselves after every month, even if they don't use it. So that's why active is the keyword here. So we do have to see what's the active users. And the same with Snapchat. So they call it average daily active users. All gone up. So basically global percentage growth 20%, rest of the world very strong 40% of active users, and then North America, Europe in the sort of single digit to low double digits, 11% in Europe and 6% in North America. In terms of the monthly decline, that's obviously something that the CEO would have to call out in their letter to the shareholders, which they did, and they actually said that the decrease of monthly users, they think has to do with, we believe the decline was due to the pandemic unwind and lower search traffic driven by Google's algorithm changes in November. So they do call out two key reasons here, which is interesting to think about, because if you look at Snapchat, they're arguably the same sort of platform, and they don't have those reasons, and they actually have consistent growth each quarter, while Pinterest has that decline. So there is some sort of a disconnect here of the story that the CEO is telling us. We do have to keep in mind that obviously Pinterest is at a way higher level of users. So they already had 450 million, while Snapchat only had 250, which, obviously smaller increases there give you a higher percentage. But nevertheless, it has gone up for Snapchat and has gone down for Pinterest, which is an interesting fact to note, and it's an interesting statistic to actually, to watch out for in the next quarterly earnings. So we don't want to see that trend continuing to slow down. We want it to be a sort of a one-time, one-off comp against last year's strong active users while everything was in sort of a lockdown mode. So, we could argue that this has an impact on that, but then again, Snapchat didn't have it at all. They're still growing rapidly. So, and I do think this is one of the reasons why they have a higher valuation. So, but let's look at the average revenue per user, the ARPU, which is an important one for, all those advertising social platforms. They do want to obviously squeeze out as much revenue as possible for every user, for every active user they have. And we do see a strong growth here from Pinterest, so 23% globally, 62% internationally, which sounds like amazing, but obviously that revenue per user was at only 30 to 20 cents, so now it's at 50 cents. So as the smaller the numbers, the more impressive the percentage gains sound. But we do see that the majority of revenue comes from the US, which has a $7.40 dollar per user, which is definitely a really, really good number comparing to last year, right? So they have increased it by a lot. And this is what kept them going and kept them being profitable, and revenue kept increasing, although we had that slowdown because they obviously doubled. The effect was doubled here through the revenue per user increase compared to the 10% user decline of active users. And in terms of Snapchat, we do have an 80% increase, which is kind of similar with Pinterest. We do look at a way higher level. So look at this globally, $1.50 or $1 to around $1.90 or average $1.75. Whereas Snapchat has around a $4 now, so $4.370 maybe on average, which is an impressive number. That's almost, it's almost double than compared to what Pinterest has got. So even with lower users, they make more money. So if they ever were to catch up to Pinterest, they would make double the amount of money, assuming the same margin. So I think that's why Snapchat has this higher valuation multiple attached to it, which I'm gonna see later on. But yeah, we do see that the rest of the world, it didn't really increase as much, but they're already at a double of compared to Pinterest at a $1, $1.10. And Europe and North America, they did make higher increases than Pinterest, 33% each. Looking at $2.50 now in Europe, and almost a $10 in America, which compares to the $7.40 for Pinterest. So something Snapchat must do right here to actually convert more dollar per user here, to be, you know, monetized better. So it seems like management has figured out a way to monetize their platforms in a much better way than compared to Pinterest, which do arguably still, they grew their monthly users a lot and didn't monetize as well. So they're only just kind of starting to really, you know, get the full benefit of it. But yeah, looking at it from a growth perspective, Snapchat seems to be the one that's growing quite quickly. Yeah. Let's go to Ebitda, kind of net income, because that's obviously something that you would look at as a, you know, as a investor, because at the end of the day, growth is nice, but you do want to have the profit coming out of in the end, because you do want to obviously make money from, if you think about it, if you have an investment property and, you know, you do have the cost, you keep increasing your rent, and you do make more income on the paper, but if your costs increase the same and everything nets off, then you don't really make any more money. So we do want to see that ticking up here of Ebitda, and we do see it, 70% increase year on year for Ebitda for Pinterest, which is amazing. You do want to see that. Same for Pinterest, same for Snapchat, sorry. Yeah, Ebitda now 327 million. This was the highest ever recorded Q4, similar to Pinterest. So think about that, right? We have, and I think this is warranting that huge reaction by the market, because we have Pinterest, we have Snapchat here, 327 million Ebitda compared to 350 million of Pinterest. So Pinterest is only around, what is it, 23 million ahead of Snapchat, but the users is almost half, or the users here is almost double than what Snapchat has. So due to that high conversion, that ARPU is higher, Snapchat does make much more money, which is also reflected in the free cash flow now that they have recorded. Obviously huge increase from last year, where they're making a loss a lot of quarters. In the last quarter of the year, they made 161 free cash flow, which is, yeah, just impressive. So that is basically the comparison of, you know, the earnings and how the key metrics compare to each other. Obviously, when we go back to you know, the actual valuation or the stats of them of both of them, we do see that Pinterest, they are only valued at a $16 billion market cap, whereas Snapchat is valued at a $40 billion market cap. So we do see that increased revenue per user, therefore increased profitability, is reflected in the valuation here. It's not that the investors haven't seen or haven't realized that. Although Snapchat has less users, it is valued at more than double what Pinterest is valued at, because, you know, they do see that future growth potential. To even just catch up to Pinterest would already be a double up from here, right? So, and if they keep finding ways to monetize their platform better, they will make more money and more free cash flow. I mean, this is also similar for Pinterest, you know. It doesn't mean that Pinterest is at the end of its days just because we had the user decline. They might find better ways to monetize through their AI-driven shop experience, basically, right? But so we do have now a much more favorable sort of valuation multiples. For instance, price to sales is at 7 for Pinterest and is at 10 for Snapchat. So you do get a discount here with Pinterest, which is, yeah, quite a huge discount compared to Snapchat. So the caveat with that is that although we have identified that Snapchat is a better growing, more profitable company, the market has obviously also already identified that, giving him a higher multiple, higher valuation. So meaning that if Pinterest now surprises next quarter with much higher revenue per user or much higher user growth again, maybe more active users again adding to it, then Pinterest has the potential of outperforming or going up on that news much more than Snapchat, which do have to have good numbers consistently to report, because otherwise if people see that massive growth, 20 to 30% growing down, people will then maybe think that Snapchat might not be the growth engine that they thought it would be. And on that news, it would basically go down and correct to a more regular level. So we definitely seen that already happening with Pinterest, that it was a high flying stock which was valued at around $90 per share, and now we've seen that coming down drastically. So Pinterest has definitely entered a more valuation, more reasonable valuation level compared to Snapchat. So Snapchat has to keep outperforming, whereas Pinterest might have a bit more room to grow on positive earnings such as. So we do have for Snapchat still a price to sales ratio of around 10 compared to Pinterest, which has gone down now to a price to sales ratio of 7. So which is, both of them are still high, but they're expected to be growing in the future, and they are growth stocks as such. So that if you compare both of them, Pinterest is at a lower valuation level already, so those decreasing user rates might already be baked in as such. So if they do outperform to the upside, yeah, we might have here a better risk to reward ratio. So sorry that might cut out here, but if you do like the video, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll see you next time. Let me know in the comments if you buy or sell or hold any of those two, and see you then. Bye.